Hey guys, let's talk about everybody's favorite subject today. Of course, I'm talking about racism. Everyone loves to talk about racism. Mostly they like to point a finger and say, that guy is racist, or what she said is racist, or, well, they're all racist. Well, everybody likes to talk about racism, but no one really does anything about it. So let's do something about it. Let's spread a little truth about it. Item from RealClearPolitics.com. Simone Sanders, former spokeswoman for the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign, appeared on CNN Wednesday afternoon to weigh in on the future of the DNC and the Democratic Party. Sanders dismissed the idea of Howard Dean returning as DNC chairman, commenting, and I quote, "We don't need white people leading the Democratic Party right now," unquote. So yeah, let's talk about racism. As you've undoubtedly heard me say on this show innumerable times, racism is bad. But it's bad everywhere and at all times. It's bad if you're talking about blacks, bad if you're talking about whites, bad if you're talking about Asians, Latinos, Native Americans, Martians. It's bad. And it goes in two directions. I've been following Donald Trump for years. I grew up in New York. I've certainly followed him daily since he came down that long golden escalator and said he wanted to run for president. I have yet to hear him say anything that's racist. And yet that's the word you hear coupled with his name more often than any other on CNN, MSNBC, CNBC. It's what you hear left-leaning politicians say, oh, Trump is racist. They're hoping to make it axiomatic. They're hoping to make it impossible for their voter base to think of Trump without thinking of racism. Well, let's think about racism. Here's this Simone Sanders saying the Democrat Party doesn't need white people. I guarantee you, someone like her is speaking for the Democratic Party, not just of it. This sense that Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders can never be the Democrat candidates because they're old white men. That's also quickly becoming a truism, a trope. And it's disgusting because it's racism and it's also sexism. And also neither of them, I mean, let's be honest, could become the Democrat Party's standard bearer because they're both dumb as a bag of rocks. But let's not excuse racism simply because it's coming from minorities. What do you say we never excuse racism? How's that? We'll set the bar that high. I've got 3 videos to play for you today. They all involve racism. So we're going to take a deep dive into the subject today. In the meantime, before the first commercial break, let's hit some news. Item from the Wall Street Journal. Congressional and White House negotiators reached a deal to increase federal spending and raise the government's borrowing limit, securing a bipartisan compromise to avoid a looming financial crisis and pushing the next budget debate past the 2020 election. Stop. Someone said to me earlier today, hey, you read that about the federal spending and then the debt limit? What about your boy Trump now? Thought he was being smart. Thought he got me. No one gets me. And he didn't get me this morning. I told him what I'll tell you right now. Donald Trump did not invent politics in the United States of America. I think you got to go back to the 1700s for that. Donald Trump, just over 2.5 years ago, stepped into a pre-existing swamp, a pre-existing governmental structure with, as you would guess, a pre-existing Congress that doesn't want to do anything. And when it does do something, it's not anything that's good for the American people. Trump has fought. The guy sleeps 4 hours a day, works 7 days a week. He has fought around the clock to push America in a good direction. He wanted to cut spending. Congress won't have it. Mitch McConnell, Republican Mitch McConnell, has become infamous for saying no one ever lost any votes by spending. Congress is addicted to it, even though it's poison. We have spent ourselves into an amazing hole. The story continues. The deal for more than $2.7 trillion in spending over 2 years, which must still pass both chambers of Congress and needs President Trump's signature, would suspend the debt ceiling until the end of July 2021. It also raises spending by nearly $50 billion next fiscal year above current levels. The agreement foregoes the steep spending cuts initially sought by the administration, providing for about $320 billion in spending over 2 years above limits set in the 2011 budget law that established automatic spending cuts known as the sequester. Folks, we should not be re-electing politicians, because when they do, they get fat and comfortable, and we get used to seeing their names, and we just vote for them again and again and again. We should hold their feet to the fire and say, guys, we need budget cuts. And we don't mean the faux budget cuts where the spending goes up, but not as much as last year, and so they call it a cut. That's not a cut. If we don't cut spending, America's going to break, and it won't be pleasant. Item from Breitbart: the hundreds of deaths of settled Christian farmers in Nigeria at the hands of nomadic Muslim Fulani herdsmen extremists over the last few years have met the standards for genocide, a pro-religious minorities NGO recently argued to the International Criminal Court, the Christian Post reported Monday. Known as the Jubilee Campaign, the international human rights NGO reportedly submitted preliminary research and data to the ICC's investigative officers in The Hague last week in the form of a new report titled Nigeria, the Genocide is Loading. Unquote. My friends, Muslims hate Christians. Get used to it. It's reality. Right now, Christians outnumber Muslims. Right now, Christians control all the governments that Muslims are seeping into. And so right now is when the Christian world, of which I am not a part, I'm Jewish, the Christian world needs to take a stand, put an end to the expansion of Islam around the world, put an end to the desire they harbor to raise the Muslim flag over every capital in the world in the name of Allah, and say, guys, the planetary jihad is over. It's Tuesday. It's Real Truth. We'll be right back.
Anna, grab your rod and your wife. Put the uppermost side of the valley. This is not bring that. All crowd favor operator 970-460-8873. Put the critical practitioners up. Need that you're good. This is not offering. You'll be happy. You'll be elected. Do you remember the energy crisis of the 70s? A lot of people panicked. We panicked. It is please now. Thank you much. And increase. The best way to hear that is that you're at the best way to take a walk at your house of brick, aluminum, steel, vinyl, wood plastic, stucco, wood plastic. Even if your walls were previously in, the best way to perform energy assessment is the best way to perform them. Qualify for self every utility. 43 years later, a lot has changed. A lot of our competition has come and gone. Using the past, we're still family-owned operations. Saving our country. That's what it was. Founded in 1976. 303 669 That's 303 469 0808. Brian again, entertainment landscape. What a great season we had so far. We would have bought flowers and paper and buy from Patio. We planted hundreds of trees, shrubs, and flowers. Thank you to all the Canadian teams and the consideration. You are important on this level of fitness. Please call us
All right, guys, welcome back. Howard Real. The show is called Real Truth. The book about the show is called Real Truth Stay Angry. Go to virtualbookworm.com. Treat yourself to it. You will love it. Democrats hate black people. That's the headline on this YouTube video. The guy named Brandon Tatum, who is black, talking about how he had an epiphany. He woke up and realized that he's been lied to all these years by Democrats who tried to convince him that no, they're not racist. The Republicans are. Well, you can only pull a wool over someone's eyes for so long. And Brandon Tatum is about to tell us a bunch of truth. Let's listen. Of course, I'll post this on my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio. And I would concur with Mr. Tatum. He's absolutely right. The Democrats despise Americans. And if you disagree with him, you can literally call me and tell me, 877-254-7524. The very notion of affirmative action. The Democrats cooked up that concept decades ago and said to blacks, look, you're not like whites. You're not as smart as we are. You're not as capable as we are. So you'll never get to the top of the ladder. You'll never get your slice of the American pie on your own. So we're going to give you handouts. We're going to give you a boost up. That's pretty damn insulting, isn't it? You bet it is. Let's go back to Mr. Tatum. And do you know why, my friends? Let me back up Brandon Tatum here. Why doesn't the Democrat Party do anything to help stem the violence and stem the hatred and help blacks stand up on their own and achieve and become independent? Well, the answer is obvious. The Democrats don't want strong, independent Americans. The Democrats want just the opposite. They want dependent Americans because the Democrats are the party of handouts, the party of free stuff. They want people who are always going to vote Democrat because, after all, they want free stuff and they know the Democrats are going to give it to them. In a sense, the Democrats have turned Americans, not just black Americans, but all Americans, all who vote Democrat, turn them into drug addicts. They've got to get their fix. The first fix is always free. Second fix may be free, but then you start to want it and need it, and then you're going to pay for it. So the Democrats have been keeping people on their plantation for decades and decades by making them reliant on the Democrat Party. It's very insidious. That's exactly it. This guy Tatum is a sharp cookie. And it supports what I just said. They want new voters. Democrats want voters. Well, they've already got black voters. A large majority of blacks vote Democrat, although more than ever voted for Trump. They want new voters with their hands out. New voters who will depend on the Democrat Party's largesse. And that's why they're bringing in illegals who are taking the jobs that a lot of blacks and Hispanics who are living here would have taken. And by working for less money, they bring the entire wage structure down, which again hurts the black community. So Brandon Tatum is absolutely right. The Democrats are screaming, like he says, about reuniting families. But the black family was broken apart by Democrats, starting with LBJ, with the Welfare Society, where they basically taught black women to marry the government. Because if they were married, they would get less assistance. If the husband, the father, was not living at home, they would get more assistance. Well, as you've heard many black commentators say, it is now endemic in the black American community. Families are broken up, fathers aren't there. And so what about the Democrats wanting to keep families together? It's just yah-yah, it's hypocrisy. 65 years. No, they don't want to tell you that, and they won't tell you that. And so you won't know that unless you happen across this video on YouTube, or if you're in the intellectual elite of this country who listens to Real Truth. When we come back, we're going to talk more about race in America. And I think you're going to want to hear what we're going to be saying. It's absolutely essential, especially with the key election coming up. We'll be right back.
The American call 1-800 If not, call 970-460-8873 for fly fishing trip. Unexperienced deep dive fishing in this summer. Or chase big brownies this fall for nothing. 6 hours on a drift boat. American skies, lunches and flies included. Visit troutgamers.com. Before hiring a realtor from a big corporation who outsources their jobs and pays little to no taxes, ask yourself what you really want in a realtor. You need a realtor who is honest and has integrity. A realtor who's focused on employees' bottom line, not the realtor's bottom line. Who provides personal, over-the-top service before, during, and after the transaction. You want a realtor that knows how to market your property. Hi, I'm James Morgan, a realtor with Grisham and Associates LLC. I am your Colorado real estate specialist. Land deals, mountain cabins, or urban dwellings, I've got you covered. For the first-time home buyer, we will make it the best experience. If you are looking for options for downsizing, we will do better than your last transaction. Call me today at 720-203-0731 or visit coloradoproperties.online. Let me do a great job for you. Brian again with our segment 19. What a great season we have so far. We have installed flowers and trees on the front of the patio. We planted hundreds of trees, enough to do it. Thank you to all the agencies who make the policy considered. You are important club in this report. City College at 704608843 or visit us at entertainmentlandscaping.com. Twitter is and please support the American Freedom Network by offering up an quality custom services. In 1990, Twitter was experience, knowledge, and skills to help create the living the you think. For your free consultation and obligation book, pick up the call 303-517-6642 or visit us on the web.
All right, guys, welcome back. Howard, Real Truth. We are talking racism today. Increasingly Americans' favorite word. I wish it were not so. Here is black radio host and columnist Larry Elder for the Epic Times talking about Colin Kaepernick, the Betsy Ross flag, and what the data really says. Here we go.
We begin from a complaint about
Excuse me, Colin. You'll name for me, please, one country. One. One will do. All I'm asking for is one. One country in world history where all the citizens were indeed equal. Go ahead, Colin. I'm listening. Oh, I forgot I'm on the radio. Yeah. But if he were here, he couldn't name one because it's not part of human race. We don't act like that. You never have everyone being equal. And to point the accusing finger at America is all the more mystifying. Let's go back to Larry Elder.
I'm Jesse Williams, the actor who said this at the
Well, folks, so before we go forward to Nike, which is easier? To do the research, come up with the data, and draw intelligent conclusions? Or to go, racism? The deplorable state of so many people in this country, most of them are on the left, leads people to take the easy way out, the non-thinking way out, to just repeat the same tropes that have been trumpeted by the media and by their friends. And when you do the research, it falls apart.
Colin Kaepernick, who made this allegation.
And folks, that's really why truth is so important, because everything hinges on it. You can't build anything sustainable or worthwhile on lies. You've got to have the truth. And that's why videos like this are so very important. And that's why I make time for them on my show. Now, I'll put this one also on my Real Truth Radio Facebook page. I recommend you go there. We've only got about 2/3 of the way through it. Watch the whole thing. Share it. Put it out on your social media platforms. Talk to people about it. And talk to them about facts. Now, they won't want to hear facts. But that's not your concern. Your concern is telling the truth. We'll be back.
First of all, it's true. Yeah, they're all pretty hard to find. Offering our customers If so, you may have a aluminum fire home. Aluminum firing typically has these homes are around 50 years old now. Using more electrical power than anyone has today. An aluminum fire is ever time. They are much harder to observe and harder to sell. Aluminum fire repair are critical. Focus on the permanent mitigation of the aluminum fire hazard. Confident for a moving question now. Aluminum fire repair. 720 99 4706. Or visit their website at ALWireRepair.com. Don't walk away from a home you're planning on buying just because it happens to be a fire. Let them help you. Your safety is their business. They are equal ways for the better business. Call them today. 712 99 4706. Or visit their website, ALWireRepair.com.
The name of the host is Howard Real. The name of the show is Real Truth. The name of the book is Real Truth Stay Angry, available at virtualbookworm.com, amazon.com, barnesandnoble.com, you name it.com, and it's probably there waiting for you. Georgia State Representative Erica Thomas turned a grocery store spat into a national outrage after claiming that a white man had committed a hate crime, telling her to go back where she came from. Her story, not surprisingly, crumbled under scrutiny. However, it happens to be in line with the narrative that we keep hearing from the left. Here is a report from Blaze TV. Go.
Liars be like, he's a lazy son of a bitch. You need to go back where you came from. And then,
I don't want to say he said go back to your country or go back to where he came from, but he was making those types of references.
I don't want to say he said the thing that I said he did. You know, the thing that caused the internet to melt. I don't want to say he said that. No, I don't want to say that anymore. But I also don't want to admit that I faked yet another hate crime. So my question is, if there's all of this hate out there, if there's all of these hateful Trump supporters are so bigoted and awful, you'd think that there would be enough so that lunatics wouldn't have to keep faking the hate crimes. We've got Ms. Erica Thomas up in the house. She's at the grocery store. She's at the grocery store Publix. And she's in she says, and that's, that's being generous. She's in the express lane. 10 items is what's supposed to be in the express lane. Express lane is supposed to be for people who want to run in and out of the grocery store. Oh, I forgot a toothbrush. Oh, I need to grab a bottle of water. It's not for mommy shopping with her kids. And yet here we've got Erica Thomas with her children and her grocery cart hogging up the lane. So like any person, homeboy gets mad, he sees this, and he takes it up with Erica because that's allegedly what the manager of the store told him to do. There's no indication that his approach to Erica had anything to do with race or skin color or whatever. He's just mad she in the wrong lane. So he called her nasty names, probably shouldn't have, right? But he lost his temper. Either way, doesn't sound racially motivated, and yet here is how Ms. Erica retold the situation.
I'm at the grocery store, and I'm in the 10 aisle. The aisle that says 10 items or less. Yes, I have 15 items, but I'm 9 months pregnant, and I can't stand up for long. And this white man comes up to me and says,
Stop. This man comes up to me. Why is it important to say white man? Why delineate race at all?
"Lazy son of a bitch." He said, "You lazy son of a bitch. You need to go back where you came from."
Sure. I mean, it's just not believable. Doesn't pass the smell test. You know how hoaxes, they have a certain smell to them. You can just smell them. Hoaxes, the smell of hoaxes. So immediately, when she said, you said go back to where you came from, I said, hoax alert, because how convenient, right? How convenient, right after we had this big conversation about the racist Trump supporters saying, you need to go back to your country. Really, some random white guy comes up to this poor black woman with her kids and says, hey, go back to where you came from, woman. You know what he probably meant? He probably meant go back to the regular aisle. Go back to the aisle that you were in before that wasn't express. That's what he really meant. No, I'm kidding, because there's no evidence he actually said go back to where you came from. She's talking to reporters, and he comes while she's talking to reporters and confronted her about it.
I'm a liar about what?
Everything that happened.
Do you feel bad?
Are you telling me you need to go back where you came from?
Do you feel bad about yesterday?
Did I say that?
Yes, why are you serious? So you
Did I say
What
it?
did you say to me then?
Is it on video?
What did you say to me?
I called you a lazy bitch.
Okay, that's all
the
you
worst
did.
thing I said.
That's all you said to me.
Yes.
Okay, because that makes you look better because everybody's asking that. That makes you look better to say that.
I know what I
It's
said.
okay. It's all
The
right
video,
though.
Oh, is that what you said? No, that's not what I said. Oh, okay. Well, then what you said still makes you look bad. No, you said he's told you to go back to where you came from, and that's what has this all over the news. If he didn't say that, you don't have a news story.
By the way, before we slip past it, this woman got yelled at by a guy in the grocery store, and then she called the media? She called a television station? Does her head not work? The only reason she would do that is because she wanted to become famous. She wanted her 15 minutes. She wanted to virtue signal that I was a victim of racism, so elect me to a higher office. The worst part is the television station went. A woman got yelled at online at the supermarket. That warrants TV news coverage? Really? It seems to me that this woman and the TV station are kind of colluding to generate a hoax where none exists.
Need to get out of our faces, Erica. And we said that the man in question
Well, folks, where would Democrats be without the untrue? It's like, where would zombie movies be without the undead? Democrats don't care about truth. They don't care about America. They care about power. This woman, an elected official, wants to go higher in the food chain. And so she wants to be a civil rights icon. She wants to be a martyr. Instead, she is revealed to be nothing more than an overweight liar and a fool. And when the media gets a hold of garbage like this, it inflames people. And yes, people get hurt as a result. That's why honesty is the best policy. Anybody ever tell you that when you were a kid? Yeah, me too. We'll be back.
Square construction is pleased to help support the American creative network by offering a high-quality custom desk system. In 1990, Square Construction predicted high-quality desks of types of buildings that is all their licensed insured and help experience knowledge and skills to help create building to do things. For free consultation on the mission book, give them the call 303-517-872 or visit it on the web. Simple, awesome. No one in America does what we do. I've got the nutrition profile that is free 1 hour interview with one of our counselors. We look at what we eat, what we drink, exercise, meditation, protein, cook, trade, calcium, history, and cooking. Everything that makes you what you think no one can. Then we will suggest food change. Maybe you should have something for your diet. Maybe you should have something for food. Then we suggest greener products. We usually suggest between 2 and 5 days. 60 capsules or 50, but remember, we're not obligated to it is 8765. It is 8765-4372 to set your no obligation. Join us at the moment of the Alex Junction Store, number 1 independent. To find out what the best streaming is from America, open at the Brook Creek ERP Booting Center. Exclusive reports, live coverage, information you won't find anywhere else. Follow the news today. Stay informed by listening to KHNC 1360. The Alex Jones Show, KHNC, the heart of Boulder, Colorado.
Item from InfoWars: a high-profile dispute in Canada over whether a transgender activist can force women's waxing salons to handle male genitalia could be repeated in the United States if a Democrat bill becomes law. The Equality Act, which the House passed in May with unanimous support from Democrats, would make quote-unquote gender identity a protected category under federal anti-discrimination laws, as it is in Canada. The bill's text specifically states salons would be affected by the law. The Equality Act, by adding the gender identity as a protected classification in federal civil rights law, could be used by activists to legally harass women who don't want to wax male private parts, regardless of whether those male private parts are attached to the people who identify as men or women. Ryan Anderson, senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation, told the Daily Caller News Foundation. Item also from InfoWars: police in India have foiled a plot to establish Islamic rule in India. 16 suspects were arrested and taken into custody. They were plotting a jihad attack in the country. They were reported to adhere to the ideologies of Al-Qaeda, Islamic State, and Students' Islamic Movement of India. Leaders in India have been on alert. At the end of May, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's right-hand man, Amit Shah, president of the Bharatiya Janata Party, called Muslim migrants from Bangladesh infiltrators and termites, and promised to remove every single infiltrator from the country except Buddhists, Hindus, and Sikhs. Unquote. My friends, it sounds to me like India has set about handling its Muslim problem. Item from Curbed.com, San Francisco. San Francisco recently released the results of its 2019 point-in-time homeless census conducted in January, and the news appears nothing less than disastrous. San Francisco's homeless headcount increased by the hundreds despite the city's seemingly ceaseless efforts to provide relief. However, the San Francisco count alone does not provide the whole story. The 2019 homelessness spike in San Francisco came amid a tide of similar baleful results across the Bay Area. 5 out of 10 Bay Area counties, that is, all of them not located in the North Bay, saw their homeless count spike during the same period, with each other county showing worse homelessness surges than San Francisco. My friends, that is Democrat heaven, and it's a hell. Item from Breitbart. President Donald Trump said Tuesday he would win Minnesota in 2020, arguing Representative Ilhan Omar's radical views would only help him. Quote, in 2016, I almost won Minnesota, he wrote on Twitter. In 2020, because of America-hating anti-Semite Representative Omar and the fact that Minnesota is having its best economic year ever, I will win the state. Unquote. My friends, don't bet against him. Item from Breitbart. Wall Street is warming up to the idea of Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat, Massachusetts, being the Democrat nominee for president against Donald Trump in the 2020 election. A Politico report details how the Wall Street insiders are becoming comfortable with Warren as the potential nominee to go up against Trump and his America First agenda. Unquote. My friends, Elizabeth Warren isn't going anywhere. I don't care how many bankers support her. I don't care how many checks they write. The woman is a fool and a buffoon and a laughingstock. She's got less Native American DNA than the average American. She's a liar. She's a panderer. And by the way, those are good qualities. All right, we're done. I will be back tomorrow with more Real Truth. We'll be talking about other things than race, but it was important to focus on that today because they focus on it in the mainstream media every day. Hasta luego. I'll see you tomorrow.